every single time. Now this particular trap, the one you see, that's the outside of the trap up on top. That is the new top for the JF Oaks Pro Pest Monitor. Andy has these available. That's the underside of the trap that has where you can do your documentation. And thank God for all the men in the audience, it has instructions in pictorial form. Because we don't need no damn instructions. We instinctively know how to do everything. So it has instructions in forms of pictures, and then for the ladies it has written instructions, because they're going to read those and hit us over the head and say, follow the damn instructions. And then it also has instructions in Spanish. The forced monitoring process, I got into the course of building that probably 30 years ago, because it was failure upon failure upon failure in the field with German cockroach accounts. When I first joined the pest control industry, I would go to the Purdue conference in the 1970s, and we were talking about German cockroaches the way we talked about bed bugs 10 years ago. Like, oh my God, you better watch where you go. If you have cuffs on your pants, you're going to get roach nymphs in your cuffs and spread them everywhere. I mean, it was a mess. And so many pest control companies were built because somebody else failed doing German cockroach control. So I built the forced monitoring process. And what that means is we're using monitors to force the insects to tell us what their distribution is. I mean, I think, do we have that in one of your magazines coming up?
In the October issue, or no, November issue, yeah.
Oh, okay, because I know you would talk to me on the phone about that. So there's an explanation that Heather can give you on forced monitoring, but the idea is you have to let the pest show you what the pattern is. Pay attention. Don't just jump in there with a bunch of pesticides and willy-nilly blast the place, because the last 10 pest control companies did exactly the same thing. This will bring population numbers down dramatically. For example, we had a situation in this part of the country maybe 20 years ago with a large commercial facility with German roaches, and they had a production facility inside of it. I went in there with a team of technicians. We dropped traps all through there, and we based that distribution of traps on going through and interviewing, and we had maps of the facility. And what's the question you ask when you're doing interviewing regarding pest issues? You all know what that question is, right? You never ask, where are the roaches at? Because what are they going to tell you? Everywhere. At that point, you're screwed. But what you need to have, if you have a tendency to do that, and you have pest control companies you compete with that you absolutely hate, carry their business cards in your pocket, and when they tell you everywhere, hand them your competitor's business card. Because you'll keep them busy with that stuff, and you can go out and get some real work. Yeah. The question you ask, I credit it to Austin Frischman. You guys all know Doc. I've known Doc forever. And the one thing that I always remember he taught me was, you ask, where was the last place you saw? That's the question. So when you go through that account and you're asking people questions, because that's what you have to do, you have to become familiar, where was the last place you saw a roach? And they're going to go, and at that moment in time, all you have to do is go, show me. Based on that interview and based on what you've done building those maps, that's how you place these traps on an overnight basis, and you will absolutely find out the distribution. And you will find them in places they're not supposed to be. When we did this in a commercial account up here, we pulled the traps the next morning, and we took them back to my hotel room, so I brought bags of cockroaches and traps into my hotel room. They were black plastic, so nobody could see. And I personally counted over 3,000 insects in the traps that I was going through. And when we met with the QA department the following day, the first thing the man said was, "What the hell did you spray?" I went, "Excuse me?" And he said, "There's hardly any roaches." They were in those. The roaches are hungry. There's a food scent to that. There's an attractant scent. We picked up thousands and thousands and thousands of them. We brought the population down. I just did this again in Central Florida. with a mobile home that was absolutely ate up with German cockroaches, and we brought most of the population down in these traps. They have to feed. And so they were trying to feed, and they went to the traps. And even if they're being cannibalistic, they still went to the traps to feed. And it works if you use the process properly. This is kind of what they look like. And what you need to do is figure out the patterns based on the catch in these traps. Now, a number of years ago, the patterns were established. The easiest way to do this, the nymphs, the little guys, their range from point of capture would be roughly 6 feet in any direction for a bubble 12 foot across. I'm sorry, that's the females. The little nymphs would be 12 inches in every direction for a bubble 24 inches across. The females are 6 feet bubble, and then the males are a 12 foot bubble. So based on the traps, you'll see your entire distribution of roaches, and you'll do it in very, very short order. That's why I like these traps. And there's other companies that have them, that's what I'm familiar with. Let's take a look at a PMP. What's so important about right there? Right here. What's that? If you are an owner or a manager in the pest control industry, you should be able to recognize every single one of your employees with that profile.
That's right.
If you can't recognize your employees in that position, you have not spent enough time in the field. You should know the ass of every one of your people. Because that's when they're doing their work properly. If they're not crawling around, they can't do the job. It's that simple. And I have worked with this young man for a number of years. He and I test equipment all the time. And I can walk into any facility, and when I see that, I know, oh, that's Chris's ass. Because I've seen it a number of times. But that's how you have to be in the field. Now, what is that? What's that? It's a foam. Okay, you're the only person that knew there was a foamer? You guys use foam here? You all know what that is? Foam, F-O-A-M. It's an incredible way to treat and clean things. Now, that foamer happens to be the one that for a long time was marketed by Nisus. I like that piece of equipment. There are other options. The Burj Meyer foamers. We've used this one quite a bit. That's a larger unit, and then a little handheld unit, which is basically a 1.25 liter. I like what foam does because it sticks to a surface. It cleans at the same time, and it takes crud off. Now, you have to have partnerships in the pest control industry. This little foamer right here, that is partnership in the hand. And what we've done with a lot of the restaurants that are being serviced in the South, because that's where most people see me, these guys are to the point now where they will sell their clients a little Birch Meyer foamers. And then the clients will do their regular everyday cleaning underneath the dish ring by foaming it. And when you start doing that, you start cleaning things up. And so this is the client doing the work. They use those. And this is something you teach them to do every day. They have to clean anyway. Why not make the process easier? Because if it's easier, it's going to get done, and they're going to have less pest issues. That's the product we've been recommending for the client to use. That is Gardner Fruit Fly Spray. That stuff is a 25B exempt product. Now, because Gardner is a fly trap company, they called it fruit fly spray. The reality is, this is a mondo cleaner. And underneath those dish rings and on the floor, it will take grease and crud off like crazy. And if you visit Florida and you drive through our part of the country, when it's love bug season, this will take the love bugs off the front of the truck. Because when we have love bugs in Florida, you can stop by one of our vast rest stops, and you can actually go into a little space there and clean your car off just so you can see to drive. Because the windshield is completely covered with it. Now, I put that little note there with the aerosol can because I found out this product is going to be coming out in an aerosol as well. So you can look forward to that. This is still, that bottle right there is the concentrate, and you mix that with gallon of water, and you're good to go, and it's very, very inexpensive. That's what it does. That is a 35-year-old restaurant underneath the dish ring, and does that look pretty clean? It's like this all the time, because the employees do that every single night with that little foamer. They like it because it's easy to use. They like it because the product won't hurt them. They like it because it smells good. And their cleaning has gotten much, much easier to do. The other thing was kind of cool. They were having trouble with small fly issues. This fixed it. Because there was no breeding source left. This just knocked it out. It was just ideal. So these are things that we need to think about. They also have the fly traps. I got in trouble for showing this picture down in Florida about 5 or 6 years ago with a PMP down in South Florida. He got very angry with me. He said, "You've just given away my secret to hold on to accounts." Because in his company, they install these with every start they do, and they have maintained a regular service that customers get blue boards and everything else. And he said, frankly, we use the commission money from these, and this pays Christmas for all of my employees. So I don't appreciate you telling the rest of the industry these are available. And Andy has these. These are a good little trap from Gardner. Something else in a foam. Have you been by the nicest booth? This stuff is so cool. They went to a larger can, they went to a more robust can, and they give you a handy crack and crevice nozzle. Now, if I'm doing a vast amount of foaming, I'm going to be using a foamer. But if I've got to have something to drop into a service kit that I need at a moment's notice, oh hell yeah. And we had an incident recently. Anybody here ever dealt with, what's that stuff called? It comes out of a person when they're sick and they throw it out of their mouth. Vomit. Has anybody ever dealt with vomit? Like in your car, your grandchild sitting next to you, you've just given them, I don't know, a milkshake, hot soup, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and you're on the way to the ball game. And the kid says, "I don't feel well." You don't have time to pull over. We just dealt with this, and all of the cleanup after I scraped the gelatinous goo off the windshield and the seats and everything else, the Foam Fresh cleaned everything for me. Excellent product, well worth using. Sticking a moment with Nisus. You've gone through and you've figured out the distribution of the cockroaches in that account. What are you going to treat it with? Are you going to go in there and run a fogger? Are you going to go in there and pump those walls full of chemical and try to flush the roaches? In most situations, I will remind you, the only place you should flush regularly is the restroom. A restaurant doesn't need to be flushed. Stop it! Because the last 10 pest control companies did the same damn thing, and you failed too. Go to something like this, like Nibor D. I've spent so many years with this product. I understand how it works, and I've gone into horrible situations in restaurants, and this was the product line that fixed it. Because you can use it as a liquid, you can use it as a dust, you can use it as a foam. The same damn stuff. And what it does is turn everything into poison bait. That takes care of bait rotation. One of the sites I work with on a regular basis, and I mean I'm there twice a month because I want to do assessments and I want to play with their kitchens. We've been NIBOR D-ing, we had a NIBOR D program after forced monitoring on that account the last 8 years. At one point when we took it over, that account was going to be shut down by the health department and put on television. They've had nowhere close now in almost a decade. That's our baseline. That's been our entire baseline of service. We've had no issues whatsoever. We also know the pattern of distribution. We also know when that delivery truck comes at 4 o'clock in the morning and opens up the back door of the restaurant and hand stacks onto hand carts and pushes it into the restaurant and stacks it up all over the place. So the employees can come in at 8 o'clock to get ready for lunch and put it all away, which means that stuff sits there for between 3.5 and 4 hours And you think there's any chance of roaches in those boxes that have produce and napkins and silverware and uniforms and everything else in that's delivered to a restaurant, and they're all over the place in the kitchen waiting for somebody to put them in the locked storeroom? That's how you get the roaches distributed. We know that. And we also scheduled services based on the way those deliveries are made, because we asked the doggone question. What is your delivery schedule? Now, how often should you service that restaurant? Average restaurant, how often? I mean, is once a month enough? No. What we have found on average is 2 services a month do the job. We have a heavy lifting service. That's the nighttime service. We have a daytime visit, because the daytime visit becomes our communication visit. When we can talk to the manager and the owners and look outside because it's not dark out and actually see something. It is, let's say this particular location is also in a spot with a tremendous number of rodents. Can I pattern rodents in the middle of the night where there's restaurants all over the place, or can I do it better in the daytime? Probably in the daytime, because I can see the damn trails. I can see where they're moving. So we have a daytime service and a nighttime service. This has been our combination for some time, but it works. This is a new duster. I've spent a little bit of time with this already. It's the Bobby Duster from Birch Meyer. Pat Ryan has one in the booth. Take a look at this. It's an interesting piece of equipment. It's not really expensive. We've done a lot of work with this already with both Nibor-D for roaches and with Semexa. It works off the headspace. And a good duster is one that works off the headspace, which means the dust is on the bottom and it's picking dust out of the airflow that comes across the top. That way you're not getting clumped up product and creating a mess. This was originally developed in Europe by Birch Meyer for greenhouse situations. But it's not bad. The guys that really like it, when I first brought it into the field, I think we had it at the Arkansas Pest Management meeting, and a bunch of the fellas bought it, and they really like it. And they're using it for ants or using it for roaches. Product choice is fine, whatever they want to use. But it's an inexpensive alternative to powered dusters. I did find out when I was talking to the folks over at the Pelsis booth, their dusting system may be worth looking at, because normally I gravitate toward other units, but I've not spent any time with it. So you definitely want to take a look at it, because I'm all for something new and different and advanced, and I want to see that innovation happening on a regular basis, and I know I can't get it from one company. As I mentioned, Semexa is fine in this unit. How many people have worked with this product? How easy is it to control? Not very. If you're not careful with this stuff, it goes everywhere. And I have been told, I've not done this, but I have been told that that duster has given some measure of control back. So it's something to look at, because this is another really good product. This is one I normally recommend for void treatments for bed bugs, not so much for roaches. That's generally worked for the Nibor-D. If you look at pest control in general, we have 5 primary systems that we use in this industry. We have heat, cold, fume, chemical, and mechanical processes. Everything we do is heat, cold, fume, chemical, and mechanical. The reason we break fume out is because fume requires a little bit of training and dexterity so you don't kill yourself or kill your client. Fumigation is a different animal. So it's heat, cold, fume, chemical, and mechanical processes. This is controlled heat. I've not worked with this unit a lot. I hope to in the future. I worked with Italian steamers probably 15, 20 years ago. And we actually were using them at that time in some specialty work for PetSmart. And they did a really good job because they had some sensitive environments that we had to get a good kill, but we couldn't use a single drop of pesticide because right over here were tens of thousands of dollars worth of fish. So we were looking at some of these steamers to give us an alternative. This has taken it and reduced it massively in size. We had cart-mounted units that were outrageously expensive. I understand Andy has a good price on this right now, and with the scale of things, this is a very inexpensive unit, and it's definitely worth looking at. Now, what's another example of heat? What's controlled heat? A chamber. So a heat chamber is controlled heat. You could also have heating units that fit into a building, although, what do you guys use here for heat? Do you use chambers, or do you use the big heating units? Okay, you still use, because what I'm finding in general is a lot of companies are backing off on the big heating units, and they're going more select control with sometimes pesticides, environmental changes of the chambers. And I don't know if it's expense or something else, or I've been told that some of the companies that made the heating units have gone out of business, and they can't get parts for them. So that could be an issue as well. Obviously, this is the elephant in the room. You guys dealt with this up here. You're still dealing with it in New York. I see people with masks on. It always bears discussion because what I saw happening originally when this started boiling up, I knew that we were going to have customers, particularly large commercial accounts, that went at the front door and went, stop. You can't come in here unless you can prove your technician's been vaccinated. And I've gotten the calls, well, what am I supposed to do? And I said, well, between you and your technicians, you're going to have to make a choice. Because if you want to continue doing business, this is a personal choice thing. We had the social distancing. It was 6 feet, then it was 3 feet. I mean, reality, crap. Who came up with 6 feet?
Arbitrary.
It's arbitrary. You're absolutely right. It was arbitrary. It could have been 12. But then we simply couldn't have ever gotten near anybody. And you would have thought that it would have cut down on the birth rate. Nope. I remember the blizzard babies, 1978, the blizzard of 78 blizzard babies. We're going to have COVID babies out the wazoo because people paid no doggone attention to social distancing. This is the N95 mask. This blocks 95%. That's why it's called the N95. Now, keep in mind, it says blocks. What if there's a vent in it that you put the colored sticker on? Is it blocking anything that's coming out of you? No. You're still spewing stuff all over the place, so that doesn't work. But what was interesting to me when this all started, I was talking to a family member who's also in pest control, and his company was locking down everything. Don't come to the office. We're going to service our accounts. Don't socialize with anybody. Stay home. Do your work. Go home. And he had 2.5 boxes of N95 masks in his truck. How long did these masks work in the field? Seriously. 4 to 6 hours maybe? And what do you do when you're done with it? Throw it away. Okay, he had 2.5 boxes in his truck, and what he was told on a phone call in his truck was, use your mask for 40-hour weeks now, 1 mask a week. So I'm sure, I didn't know about this technology, but apparently Apple has a technology that can alter this mask and turn it into a 40-hour mask. It's a phone app. A lot of screwy things happen with COVID. Just make a wise decision for yourself. You make a wise decision for your family, your company, and your community. Please think of it in this fashion. Take care of yourself first, because then you can care for your family, your company, and your community. And this goes for everything that you would do in this industry, period. We have to protect ourselves. We have to protect us. Nobody here is Wolverine. And I've worked with technicians over the years that thought they were Wolverine. They were the guys that went in and bogged out a restaurant with a respirator hanging around their neck, down here. That was so they could still smoke while they were fogging the place. You can't heal. You have to use the PPE that we actually have to protect yourself. PPE will frankly save your butt, and knowing butts the way I do, that's Chris's butt in a crawl suit carrying a phone. But that greasy, grimy slop would have been all over him, and I took that picture when we did that initial clean out on that restaurant 8 years ago. It was disgusting. And we used a lot of technology to clear that mess out, and we had nothing but success from that point on. The label is the law, follow it. This little clip right here talks about PPE. If it tells you to wear long pants and socks, you damn well better wear long pants and socks. One of the Florida regulators' favorite ways to catch somebody is it'll be 95-degree heat, 95% humidity, and somebody will be out there in a t-shirt and a pair of shorts changing bait stations. He's got you. Because the label says long sleeves, long pants, and socks. Just saying. Use common sense. This picture, he's dressed exactly like he's supposed to be doing the work. That's taken in Florida. It ain't pleasant. No way in hell is that pleasant. That's a battery-powered backpack from Birch Meyer, and here's a technological jump. Birch Meyer is part of the CAS group, which means all these companies use the same battery and the same battery technology. So the battery that works on your Birch Meyer backpacks will work on every single one of those. So you can get other power equipment that works with the same battery. Because nothing's worse than having a bunch of different batteries out there. Is that proper footwear? Well, what upsets me about this is that is a really crappy manicure for business. That should have been properly colored. I mean, I'm really horrified with that. But that piece of equipment right there, that's golden. Because that's Birch Meyer. How many people have been to the booth that Pat Ryan has and seen this PR3? This is revolutionary technology, and if you don't have a PR3 on your Birch Meyer, you are out of your flipping mind. Because if you're using the pump-up backpacks, or if you're using their sprayers, this reduces your pumping dramatically. And I don't know if the video, let's see if this video will play. Yes, it will. I don't know if there's sound with it, because I don't know if they blink sound. Otherwise, I will, nope, I'll just take care of this. If this video will just run for me, come on now, come on. The PR3, of course, is a very small item, but obviously it's not running properly. There we go. Those are the backpack units that this unit will work on. This is the old Flox backpack, and that's the new Flox 10. And that little device simply fits between the gun and the hose. If you've ever used one of these, you get tremendous arm buildup over a period of time. Now the unit itself goes from 1 bar to 3 bars. That's 14 psi to 44 psi. So what you're going to do is set that the desired pressure that you want coming out of that sprayer. The cool thing is it maintains it. So when you pump things up, you're going to get the same output all the time from the unit. And you know, with something like this, you can save so much time and effort in the field. It does have an on and off switch on the side, so if you want to turn it off, you can. But the cost of these, I think they're about $30, $35. And I've told Birch Meyer, don't sell them as new units. Put them on every single unit coming out of the factory. Because it goes right here between the gun and the hose. And that happens to be a Vario gun. Anybody use these Vario guns in the field? I like this. It's lightweight. And I can spray a misty fan right here, and if I need a pin string, I can hit that chandelier with it in about 2 seconds. Because all the adjustments in my hand. But here he is going along the building. Yeah, I see we've got a real lag on the video, so I might skip past it. But what ended up happening is he walked all the way down and all the way back and never had to pump up the sprayer once. That's the beauty of that PR3. They also offer a smaller tip for using disinfectant products. Now, we're getting into the range right now where people are asking us to disinfect because of COVID, and that business model is changing. Because I've seen the advertisements on television now that talk about disinfectant laundry detergent. So the public is getting in their heads, I have to disinfect on a regular basis. You can use Birch Meyer equipment with this tip on it and be very, very successful.